More than 50% of scientists of Chinese descent here in the U.S. feel considerable fear or anxiety that they're under government surveillance. MIT professor Gang Chen, a Chinese immigrant, is one of them. He was accused and then cleared of espionage charges by the DOJ after contributing to a major scientific discovery. He says he's stepping away from federally funded research because of the stress over alleged racial profiling. NBC News Asian America reporter Kimmy Yam joins us now with more. Kimmy, good to see you. Let's start with the now cleared espionage charges against Professor Chen. Walk us through how the professor was even identified or considered to be an alleged spy.
Thank you so much for having me, Morgan. This really goes back to over a year ago. It was when Professor Chen was applying to a DOE grant. The DOJ accused him of concealing affiliations with Chinese entities, among several other different allegations. And then he was charged of spying for China. So in January of 2021, agents stormed his home. They arrested him in front of his family, and then it kind of began a very contentious, difficult year for him. Something that was brought up by about 200 different MIT faculty was that a lot of the accusations lobbied against him were pretty standard practices in the scientific and academic community. Things like reviewing research proposals or suggesting students, apply for programs in China or abroad. That's pretty standard. And it's something that they said were some of the most innocuous parts of his job. And they also said that there was a huge misunderstanding of how federally funded grants really work. Earlier this year, in January of this year, he was cleared of charges. And it was also discovered that he was not at all actually obligated to disclose those affiliations at the end of it all during the grant process. And so the basis of the case was dismissed. But again, another thing that MIT professors brought up was that Professor Chen did nothing to conceal these affiliations. In fact, if you look on the MIT website right now, his CV is there, and it has dozens and dozens of citations and examples of his work along with the different research institutions that he worked with. So it was a very long, arduous process for him to get cleared.
Yeah, Kimmy, I want to ask you one more question. I mean, the Biden administration has shut down the China Initiative security program that was put in place by Trump's administration after it disrupted many scientists' lives by falsely accusing them of being spies. Some even allege it encouraged racial profiling. So what are these scientists more broadly telling you about what needs to be done to stop racial profiling, specifically in their profession?
That's a great question, Morgan. As we've seen, there's actually been research saying that the majority of Chinese scientists or scientists of Chinese descent in the U.S. right now, they feel fear and that they are under government surveillance while they're doing their work. It's definitely created a really difficult environment for them to work in. One thing that was actually praised early this year was that there is a new policy that federal grants have to be standardized across all agencies. And it was actually because that there had been very murky kind of instructions over how to apply for this, what kind of information had to be disclosed for each grant in different departments, across different agencies. And something like this actually led several scientists, including Professor Chen, to be accused of spying for China because there was not a clear, instruction over what he should and should not disclose. And therefore, things that maybe weren't mentioned on forms were then used against a lot of these scientists of Chinese descent. So that uniformity across these, applications was actually really important. And at the end of it all, I think the thing that Professor Chen really said to me was just that he came to the U.S. to seek a very open research environment. He wasn't sure if he was going to stay originally over 30 years ago, and he loved that kind of open environment. And many scientists no longer feel that way. And so it's important that people encourage kind of less of this racial profiling and more of that openness.
All right. NBC Asian America's Kimmy Yam. Kimmy, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.